Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are really strapping on the sensors, you could say. We're zooming in on a pretty exciting shift happening in performance sports. We're talking about the revolution in high precision athletic coaching. And for this deep dive, we're focusing on 3D motion analysis using, well, golf instruction, which is super technical, data heavy as our main case study.
That's right. And what we're really doing here is tracing a complete shift in thinking, a paradigm shift. We've got sources detailing one coach's journey, how they basically move their entire practice from just watching, subjective visual stuff, mostly 2D video, to fully embracing objective, measurable, immersive 3D data. And it's more than just new gear. It's fundamentally changing how you understand the athlete's body.
Exactly. And maybe the biggest takeaway, the thing to really grab onto from this whole dive is this. This tech exists to bridge that gap, that really frustrating conflict every athlete faces, honestly, anyone learning a complex skill. It's that chasm between what you feel like you're doing, your perception, and what the cold, hard data shows is actually happening, what's real. Closing that gap. That's the core mission here.
Yeah, because historically, coaching, especially in these technical sports, it was limited, right? Our sources remind us 2D video, that was the go-to for decades. It let you do basic checks, maybe track a club path, look at an angle.
But it's flat.
Yeah.
2 dimensions. You're always fighting things like, parallax, just changing your viewing angle makes things look different. You just couldn't capture depth properly or rotation or the internal forces the body's generating. It was missing a whole dimension, literally.
Right.
So the quest was always for data that was, well, tangible, undeniable. And this is where that feel versus real idea is just so critical. Why is change so hard for athletes? Because their body, their kinesthetic sense is telling them one thing.
But the result, like the ball flight, is telling them something completely different. A player might swear they're finally exaggerating that shoulder turn to fix their slice. But you put them on the 3D system, and the data shows maybe a 2-degree increase in rotation. Nowhere near enough.
Wow. So that realization that what you feel is wrong, even when you're trying your absolute hardest, that must be incredibly frustrating. How does the data cut through that frustration? How does it build trust?
Well, it speeds up trust because it kind of eliminates the argument. When the player actually sees the graph, the visual representation of their movement, the exact curve of their pelvic rotation or the speed of their hip turn, they stop arguing with the coach, and they start working with the data. The conversation shifts from, I don't feel that, or I don't believe you, to,
okay, show me the numbers. How do we fix that number?
Exactly. It becomes collaborative problem solving based on objective reality.
But, okay, for coaches to really jump on board with something that's different, the tech itself has to stack up, right, against the gold standard. We learned about this really pivotal moment for the coach in our sources. They tested a new, much more accessible 3D system side by side with their super high-end, extremely expensive lab setup.
Yeah, the old system, that was like a $100,000 rig. Marker-based optical tracking MO cap. Required sticking dozens of little sensors all over the body. Very complex.
So the comparison, how did it go?
That was the validation. The graphs, the motion sequences from this new system, the one that just uses a smartphone or tablet camera, were, and this is a quote, shockingly close to the readings from that massive MOCAP lab.
Shockingly close. That's the game changer, isn't it? That detailed, specialized motion analysis, once stuck in university labs or elite training centers, is now literally in the pocket of any coach, anywhere.
It's huge. It's the democratization of high-level biomechanics for coaching. Think about that potential. Accessibility just explodes adoption. And something else that built trust really fast for this coach was the company behind the tech. They were really transparent. They weren't just selling a black box. They shared their testing data, their validation process. That gave the coach confidence to really rely on those numbers.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about using this analysis. If the 3D system captures everything, every tiny tilt, rotation, acceleration, the sheer volume of data must be overwhelming. You can't just blast a student with 20 different graphs, right? How do you even start? Where's the focus?
Yeah, that's the immediate challenge, focusing the fire hose, like you said.
Yeah.
And the sources show the coach learned pretty quickly to zero in on the part of the body that, more than anything else, dictates the swing's outcome. That's the lower body, specifically the pelvis. They realized, you don't need to tackle all 12, 15 data points right out of the gate. That just leads to paralysis by analysis for everyone involved.
Okay, the pelvis. And within the pelvis movements, what were the absolute must-know metrics, the ones that gave the most immediate results?
They really honed in on this powerful trio. We're talking pelvis rotation, pelvis sway, and pelvis lift.
Yeah.
Just understanding and being able to tweak those three things It has a massive impact on strike consistency. Low point control.
Okay, let's clarify that for listeners. Low point control, that's about where the club hits the ground relative to the ball, right? Key for clean contact. But focusing just on the pelvis, doesn't that kind of ignore the arms and hands? Which is where most players feel the problem is.
Yeah, that's the classic misconception. The coach confirms. Like, every student comes in thinking it's their hands or arms. But the data consistently shows that most of those upper body issues, they're just compensations. They're downstream effects of what the lower body isn't doing correctly. If the pelvis moves right, generates force correctly, sequences properly, the arms and club tend to just fall into place much more efficiently. That trio dictates so much. Oh. Rotation controls the power sequence. Sway affects your distance to the ball, so path. And lift the vertical movement that's absolutely critical for managing that low point.
Got it. Okay, let's use that anecdote from the sources to make it really concrete. There was that player struggling constantly with a closed club face, hitting pull hooks. They were probably messing with their grip, wrist angles.
Oh, absolutely. Treating the symptom, right. And the player felt like they were moving correctly. They felt they were clearing their hips, getting vertical. But then they ran the 3D capture, and the system immediately flagged it. Dramatically insufficient vertical movement of the pelvis. The lift number was way too low.
So the root cause wasn't actually the club face or the hands at all. It was the lack of upward push, the ground force generation from the lower body, which then forced that compensation, that flip, to close the face.
Precisely. So now the coach has a clear, measurable target. The fix wasn't some tiny grip tweak. It was a major overhaul focusing on the lower body sequence. These specific drills in this case, things like explosive jump exercises, totally focused on generating vertical force. And the moment the player increased that vertical lift number, they started using the ground better. The compensations just vanished. Ball flight transformed. And that kind of targeted fix based on one specific data point, impossible with just 2D video. You'd still be guessing.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting for me, the philosophical shift. Because this kind of precise data forces coaches away from that old model of trying to make everyone fit some generic tour average.
Yes, this is a huge insight from the sources. And it's so critical. Why were tour averages often flawed? Because people are different. You tell someone they need, say, 110 degrees of shoulder turn, because that's the average. But maybe their hip flexibility or their spinal structure physically prevents that. Trying to force them into an average they can't achieve, that just leads to injury or worse performance.
Right, so the focus shifts completely to personalization. It's about finding individual baselines.
Absolutely. The key question the coach now asks is, what does the data look like when this specific player hits a great shot? That successful swing, their successful swing, becomes the benchmark. That's the reference point we want to recreate. It doesn't matter what some tour pro does. It's about working backward from their personal best impact position. It respects their unique body, their limitations, and their strengths.
Okay, so how does this actually work in a lesson? You can't just be yelling numbers at the student constantly, surely. How's the data managed?
No, data management is key. The coach uses 3D capture with basically everyone now, but they don't always show the student all the numbers right away. Often the data is more for the coach's analysis first. They'll watch the swing, maybe glance at the key metrics on their own screen, and then give a simple feel-based instruction. Something like, okay, feel like you're pushing off your back foot a little sooner.
So translating the data back into a feeling the player can work with.
Exactly. But then when they need to really drive a point home or show why a change is working, that's when they'll pull up the relevant graph or maybe the 3D motion sequence on the big studio screen. It backs up the teaching point. Like, see? We got your pelvic lift up by 5 degrees, and that's why the ball isn't starting left anymore. It keeps the information targeted, prevents overwhelm.
And the sources mention a pretty comprehensive onboarding for new students. It's not just hit a few balls.
No, it's a full assessment, usually around 90 minutes. The goal is to capture the student swinging naturally, without too much initial instruction. They collect data using everything together, the 3D motion capture, force place measuring ground interaction, and 2D video, just for context.
Yeah.
It gives this holistic snapshot, a massive amount of baseline performance data, and that forms the foundation for a truly personalized, long-term improvement plan. It just takes the guesswork right out of it.
And because these new systems are so accessible, the coaching isn't tied to the studio anymore, is it? This data-driven stuff works online too.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the sources suggest it actually transforms virtual coaching, takes it from being mostly observational and kind of limited to being fully analytical. The coach mentioned doing complete swing assessments remotely, from their home office, sometimes even from their living room couch.
Wow. How does that work technically? Getting that 3D data over like a video call sounds tricky.
It sounds a bit clunky, but it's actually pretty ingenious. They use a dual phone setup. So one phone is just for the live communicate video chat, talking with the student,
Mm-hmm.
and the second phone is dedicated purely to recording the swing and then uploading that 3D data file, usually in real time or right after the swing.
Ah, okay. So the communication channel stays clear and the recording happens separate.
Exactly. It ensures good quality video for the analysis without disrupting the live chat. And it means they can build that same personalized plan based on real data no matter where the student is.
That's a fantastic use of simple tech. Okay, so for coaches listening, maybe they're intrigued, they want to start integrating this kind of data. It must feel daunting though, right? Jumping into maybe 12, 15 different data points straight away. What was the advice for getting started?
Yeah, definitely overwhelming potential. There were two key pieces of advice. First, start simple and learn by doing. The recommendation was maybe host a free 3D assessment day. Get people in for short 15-minute sessions. Just capture a lot of data, volume. And then, spend time afterwards, maybe late at night, whenever just studying those numbers. Don't even worry about teaching much at first. Just look for patterns. Connect the good shots to certain data signatures, the bad shots to others. That repetition builds your own understanding and pattern recognition.
Okay, so observe and learn first. Makes sense. And the second piece of advice, that relates to avoiding the overwhelm.
Precisely. Avoid data paralysis.
Yeah.
Don't try to master everything at once. Begin with just a few core metrics. Again, that pelvic trio, sway, lift, and rotation, that's the recommended starting point. Get really comfortable seeing those patterns across different golfers. Once you feel you've got a handle on those, then maybe start exploring torso movements or wrist angles or whatever seems relevant next. Build confidence layer by layer.
Right. So bringing this all together then, it seems clear that 3D motion analysis systems are, well, a seriously powerful force for change in precision coaching.
Absolutely. But it's really important to frame it correctly. 3D is a tool, a powerful one, yes, but it's not magic. It's not a replacement for good coaching. It doesn't replace the coach's experience or their eye or their ability to communicate and motivate. What it does is enhance all of that. It complements it by bringing objective, undeniable data into what has always been a very subjective world of athletic feel. It just creates incredible clarity, builds real confidence, and ultimately drives consistency.
So, the big takeaway for you listening, this ability to actually measure those often invisible differences between feel and real, it has fundamentally changed how complex physical skills can be taught and learned. It confirms, yeah, sometimes what we perceive is just wrong. And maybe that leaves us with a final provocative thought, one that stretches beyond just sports. If athletic performance can be so radically improved by understanding that our perceived movement is often the opposite of measured reality, where else in your life, maybe in your business decisions, your daily routines, even how you manage relationships, might your strong gut feel be steering you away from the real story told by the underlying data? Something to chew on until our next deep dive.